For 2,000 years, a foundational story of our world has started with an empty tomb. You know the one. The Gospels tell us that Jesus of Nazareth was buried, and a couple of days later, that tomb was found empty. But what if there's another side to that story? An archaeological one that was discovered completely by accident, then hidden away for decades, and raises some of the biggest questions you can imagine. What if the reason that tomb was empty has been sitting in a box in a warehouse, just waiting for us to piece it all together?
So that's the big question, isn't it? It's the question that drives this entire investigation. It asks us to look at this very familiar story, but not just through the lens of faith. It asks us to look at it through the hard, cold evidence of archaeology and forensic science.
Okay, so let's go back to 1980. We're in the Talpiot neighborhood of South Jerusalem. A construction crew is doing some blasting, and boom, they accidentally blow open a 2,000-year-old tomb. Now, because of pressure from the developers, a team of archaeologists had just 3 days to get in there, excavate everything they could before the whole site was sealed up and paved over. And the things they found inside, they were cataloged, put into storage, and then, for decades, they were pretty much forgotten. So what did they find in that frantic dig? Well, they found 10 limestone boxes used for bones. They're called ossuaries, and it was a pretty common burial practice back then in Jerusalem. But what was not common was what was written on them. You see, out of the 10 boxes, 6 had names scratched into them, really informally, like little notes just meant for the family. And the names they found, well, they were absolutely astonishing.
The very first inscription that sent a shockwave through this whole thing was this one, written plainly in Aramaic, the everyday language of the time. It says, Yeshua bar Yosef, Jesus, son of Joseph. Now, look, on its own, sure, this could be a coincidence. Jesus was a relatively common name back then, but this was just the beginning of the puzzle.
On another one of the ossuaries, they found the name Maria. And what's really incredible here is the specific spelling. This wasn't the common Hebrew name Miriam. It was Maria, which is a Latinized version of the name. It's super rare to find on bone boxes from this period, but it happens to be the exact form of Mary's name used all throughout the New Testament Gospels. And then there was a name that is so specific, it's kind of hard to ignore. Yosa. This isn't the full name Joseph, it's a particular nickname. And where do we find this nickname? In the Gospel of Mark, which is the earliest of the Gospels, where Jesus' brothers are named. One of them isn't called Joseph, he's called Yosa. To this day, this is the only ossuary ever found with that nickname on it, this one.
So let's just pause for a second. We have a Jesus, son of Joseph, buried in a family tomb with a Maria and a brother named Yosa. You know, the immediate reaction from a lot of scholars was pretty predictable. These are common names. It has to be a coincidence. And for decades, that was the official story. But what do the numbers actually tell us?
For years, the story just ended right there. These incredible artifacts sat in a warehouse, basically labeled as a fascinating but ultimately meaningless coincidence. The names, Jesus, Joseph, Mary, they were popular, right? Case closed. But then, statisticians started to ask a slightly different question. How common is this specific group of names all found together? So, using some pretty conservative estimates, statisticians calculated the odds. What is the probability of finding this specific group, Jesus with a father named Joseph, a mother named Maria, and a brother with that really unique nickname Yosa, all together in one family tomb just by pure random chance? The odds came back at 1 in 600. And suddenly just dismissing this as a coincidence got a lot harder.
And this is where the story takes a really modern turn. We're moving out of ancient history and into the forensic lab. Researchers decided to use DNA analysis to see if they could figure out the relationships between the people buried here. And in the process, they stumbled upon what you might call a missing link in the story.
Scientists carefully took some residue from the Jesus son of Joseph ossuary and from another one which was inscribed Mariam a Mara, a name that many scholars connect to Mary Magdalene. They analyzed the mitochondrial DNA, which is the type of DNA that's passed down from a mother to all of her children virtually unchanged. The results? They were crystal clear. The DNA from the Jesus box and the Mariam box did not match. That means they could not have had the same mother. Now, in a family tomb, when you find individuals who aren't related by blood, they are typically husband and wife. As if this whole story wasn't complicated enough, it turns out that one of the 10 ossuaries from the dig had gone missing from the official inventory. Then, years later, an ossuary pops up on the antiquities market with an absolutely jaw-dropping inscription, James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. Its measurements matched the missing box from the tomb, but they needed proof. They needed some kind of forensic fingerprint to definitively link it back to that Talpite tomb.
And that fingerprint has a name. It's called patina. See, over hundreds of years, this unique chemical crust forms on everything inside a sealed tomb. It's created by the specific mix of minerals and soil and microbiology in that one exact spot. So every single object from the same tomb will have the exact same patina fingerprint. It's a nearly perfect way to match an object to where it came from.
So they ran the tests. Forensic scientists analyzed the patina from that James ossuary, and guess what? Its chemical signature was a perfect match to the other ossuaries from the Talpite tomb. They compared it to control samples from random tombs all around Jerusalem, and there was no match at all. The chemical fingerprint proved it. The James ossuary came from this tomb.
So now, with the James ossuary confirmed as part of this group, the odds against this whole thing being a random coincidence just became astronomical. The new probability was calculated at 1 in 30,000.
But believe it or not, the investigation still wasn't over. There was one more inscription found in that tomb. It was on a smaller ossuary, the kind that would belong to a child. And what it said was maybe the most profound and unsettling clue of all.
After all the names that connect back to the Gospels, after the DNA results and the forensic matches, the archaeologists had cataloged one last piece of this incredible puzzle. It's a name that suggests a story that goes far beyond anything found in the traditional texts we know. On that child's ossuary, the inscription read, Judah bar Yeshua, Judah, son of Jesus. So inside this family tomb, alongside a man named Jesus, his mother, and his brothers, was a child who was identified as his son. So we're left with a pretty stark choice. Is this the most astonishing, mind-bending string of coincidences in the history of archaeology? Or is this a piece of actual history, hidden for 2,000 years in a simple stone tomb, just waiting for someone to find it? The evidence doesn't give us the final answer, but it absolutely demands that we ask the question.